G'day everyone, Matt from Krank Engineering here, and I just wanted to do a few videos on basic electrical topics that you can apply to your motorcycle. So I've got about, I think, 5 or 6 videos I'll do in this series, and hopefully it'll give you enough information to go and have a play with your old bike and maybe get it running again if you've got problems, or at least keep it maintained and running. So we're going to cover a few fundamental topics first. And really we're going to talk about voltage, current and resistance, and that'll be enough to get us started for old bikes. So we need to understand a few of these concepts first. So here's a standard 12 volt motorcycle battery, and the way I like to think about batteries and what they do is they provide a force to force the current to flow from the positive to the negative terminal. So 12 volts gives you a certain amount of force, but 24 gives you more, and 50 gives you more, and 1000 gives you even more than that. So really the voltage the battery generates is just to force the current to go around the circuit. Now the current is actually the electrons flowing from one point to another, and the current's what does all the work. So the current might light up a globe, or it might turn a starter motor or something else, or sound a horn. So we can see this quite clearly. Here's a test light. I'll talk about test lights again in a little bit longer. But you can see what the current does, because when I touch the test light here, we light up the globe. So the current's flowing from the positive terminal, flowing through the filament. The filament's got a lot of resistance, so it gets really hot, and that's what's glowing now. And then the current goes back to the negative terminal. So this is a tool that helps us test whether there's current at any particular spot in the circuit. I'll talk about how to use those in a little while. So our battery, in this particular case, it's a 12 volt motorcycle battery. So it's providing 12 volts of potential difference between the positive terminal and the negative terminal. So 12 volts, I like to call it 12 volts of force. So current, what's current? Current is all the electrons flowing between these 2 points, and you need to connect these 2 points for the current to flow. And that's what happens in a normal circuit. So that's what the wires are for, connect up different components in the circuit. You measure current in amps, so that's the standard terminology. So amps or milliamps, that's a thousandth of an amp, or microamps, or whatever it might be. But amps is the general measure for current. Voltage or volts is the measure for voltage. Self-explanatory. All right, so let's talk about a couple of tools that might help us get started. And first and foremost is my favourite, which is just a straight digital multimeter. Now these guys, you could spend $800 and get a fluke multimeter if you wanted to. If you're an electrician, you might do that. But this is, this one's from JCar. I think it was about $70 or $80. It's quite a good one. You can get ones a lot cheaper, and for basic motorcycle work, you could probably get away with the $20 multimeter. But let's have a look at some of the functions on the multimeter. So the dial lets us select the different measurements it can make, and in this particular case there's an off point. Voltage, that's symbol is resistance. That's the Greek symbol omega, which is a symbol for resistance. This one's for diodes, capacitance, frequency or hertz, amps, so 10 amps, and can't read that, probably says 2, and microamps or milliamps it might be, but I don't use that very much anyway. In this particular one, you can see there's a common terminal here for the black, and micro and milliamps, 10 amps, and voltage, resistance, diodes, capacitance and frequency on this one. So we need to pick the right one. Generally you're going to have a black one in here anyway, and these ones say fused. So these ones are here to test current, but if you exceed these limits you're going to blow the fuse in the multimeter. So there's a protection there for it. Okay, but we're going to be measuring voltage, so I'm going to stick the red terminal into this one, which is the volts one. Then I turn the dial to V for volts. I'll leave it here so we can see it on the screen. And I'm going to touch these two terminals together and zero out that multimeter. Right, 0. Now this one's auto ranging is the terminology. So it'll it'll decide what range it needs to be on to read the right numbers on the screen. So positive, negative, red's positive, black's negative. So I'm going to put one on here and one on here. and the battery is right on 12 volts. Could probably use with a top-up charge, but right on 12 volts. Now, if I connect these in reverse, the only thing that happens is you get a negative symbol in the front of it here, so it just indicates you've connected it up in reverse. So, multimeter can be used for really basic voltage measurements. Can obviously be used for resistance measurements too, and we'll talk about that in a later video. So really, if you've got a multimeter, and if you're playing with old motorbikes, just go and invest in one. I think just a cheap one will do the job. Digital's great because it'll be a bit easy to read. I've got a couple of old analog ones. I probably can't even buy them anymore, but most of these are digital now. Great for testing motorbike circuits. If you're doing a lot of this sort of stuff, or restoring a bike, or rewiring a bike, I reckon it'll pay for itself. So that's a digital multimeter. The test light, again. Now I carry one of these in my tool roll. This is the cheapest, nastiest one that I could get, because I figure if someone knocks off the tool roll or it falls off or something like that, I haven't spent 80 bucks on it at least. Like I said, if you touch a particular point on the bike and there's voltage there, in theory it's going to light up. So this will be connected to the negative terminal or to the frame of the bike, because that'll be grounded, should be grounded. And once you touch that to the to a circuit or a point or a connector on the bike, and you want to test if there's voltage there, in theory it's going to light up. So handy tool, but it doesn't tell you how much voltage is there. It just tells you there is some. You don't know really how much it is. So good tool. There is a use for them. I use them on the road, but I do use a multimeter in the workshop. Okay, well that was very, very basics on voltage and multimeters and test lights, and we'll get into a bit more detail in the next couple of videos. Cheers.